Hey guys, hope everything's going well. You guys know the drill. Smash the like button, subscribe if you haven't, and comment down below. Alrighty, first of all, I'd like to thank everyone who subscribed in the past week. 90 subscribers, that's awesome for a small channel like mine. And in addition, for everyone sending me positive comments, that's awesome. I appreciate it. Unfortunately, I can't get back to all of you, so don't take any offense if I don't respond to you. Now, that being said, I wanted to continue on this topic about PSA, but I'm going to dive into the hedge fund mentality in the sports card industry. And I've talked about this in previous videos. From my observation of hedge funds, I trade, for fun as a hobby and also to try to make some extra money on the side. The hedge funds, what they do is they try to buy high and they try to sell higher. Now, a lot of hedge funds, they do not have a high return on average. They don't have a high ROI because their model is flawed, in my opinion, because they use technical analysis for trend trading. And sure, it may work for some hedge funds that make a killing and billions of dollars or millions of dollars, but majority of them, they do not. And not everyone is a George Soros, or you could think of other names as well, like a Steve Cohen, who actually owns the Mets. And getting into that, Steve Cohen owns PSA, or he's part of the group that owns PSA. And a lot of people are looking at him and they're like, you know what? I don't like the fact that it's owned by Steve Cohen, or he's the partial owner. Steve Cohen got busted, or his firm got busted because one employee was insider trading. It was maybe 8 years ago. And Steve Cohen didn't do wrongdoing from my understanding, but his firm had to take a hit. He wasn't allowed to be in the business for 2 years. And a lot of people say, oh, look, he's shady. I'm like, is more of his employee, should he have done a better job finding a better employee? Sure. It's kind of hard sometimes to know whether the employee that you hire is going to be committing a crime when he probably had a clean track record beforehand. Now, if you look at one thing I think that was kind of weird for Steve Cohen. Earlier this year, when the GameStop debacle was happening, Steve Cohen decided to help one of the guys whose short position was deep in the red. I think it's some Melvin guy. I don't remember his name. Anyways, he was providing funding to this guy, and Portnoy just lost his mind from Barstool Sports. He lost his mind, and long story short, a lot of people started to send Cohen harassing messages, death threats, and it was not fun for Steve Cohen. He had to deactivate Twitter. I do not support sending harassing messages or sending death threats to people. Now, that being said, if you are aiding one of the guys on Wall Street that got his positions blown out because of his own stupidity, and we've seen a lot of hedge funds, destroy small companies. They've destroyed companies through some of their positions in bonds and sovereign debt around the world. So there's a lot of anger towards hedge funds, and I don't think Steve Cohen understood that. His response, from what I read, was, I'm just trying to make a buck. Okay, you're trying to make a buck. Your Mets signed Francisco Lindor, to a 10-year deal. You acquired him from the Cleveland Indians. You signed him to a 10-year deal, $340 million. Granted, Lindor was pretty good in Cleveland, but you have to remember, it's Cleveland. No one really goes to Cleveland games anymore, from what I remember. And on top of it, last time, they get all these crowds was 2016 when they went to the World Series. He played in a small market, and now you brought this guy to New York, and he's never faced criticism to the extent that he has. And now, what is he batting? What, 215? I remember seeing it yesterday, 215. And you already paid the guy. You could have had 1 year dealing with him. And if he did poorly, you didn't have to sign him to $340 million. You could have signed him to a lesser deal. So if you're trying to save a buck, maybe you should look at some of the investments that you've made in the Mets. And, now you have the salary tied towards him. And you have DeGrom, you have Syndergaard, and you have all these other guys. I mean, now you can't allocate the funds where they need to go. So if you're talking about saving a buck, you should look at what you're doing with the Mets. Something that you have no understanding of, in my opinion. I could be wrong. Maybe he wins a World Series for the Mets. So what am I trying to say? Based on that one comment that I saw, that he's trying to make a buck. Sure, everyone is trying to make a living. But he's getting involved in things, in my opinion, that he has no clue. And sure, Nat Turner is the guy. But what do you think Cohen wants with PSA? He just wants to make a buck. He doesn't care how it's done. He doesn't care what his consumers say. I mean, look at the comments on my video the other day. Majority of them agreed with me that they do not like what PSA is doing. And if you disrespect consumers for a long period of time, they're going to go elsewhere. Now, PSA still may have a competitive advantage because they're still the number one brand out there, but we shall see. Remember, BGS used to be number one, but PSA overtook it. If PSA continues to disrespect their customers in the coming years, there will be a shift towards probably SGC. BGS is backlogged. SGC is turning around the cards really quickly. So that's something to know. And then there was the Blackstone Group that just acquired the parent company of CGC or CSG. And here's the thing, Blackstone Group, I was seeing actually this video from Northeast Ohio Sports. He's talking about, all these rich guys, they're putting their money, they must know what they're doing. And I'm like, just because they've made bets in the past that have gone for them doesn't mean they know what they're doing. I'll go back to 2007. I was doing a research project when I was interning at a real estate company in San Francisco. And in this internship, I was researching the Blackstone Group. I actually encouraged my mom to buy some Blackstone Group stock, which probably wasn't the best idea because I think it went to, $3 a share in 2008. Now it's, $97 or something like that. But anyways, the Blackstone Group that year acquired Equity Office, which was a company run by Sam Zell, who is a real estate titan, and he later owned the Chicago Cubs. But then he sold that to the Ricketts family. So Zell messed up because he couldn't, win with the Cubs. And the Ricketts, found a great deal with the Chicago Cubs. They won, our first World Series in a long time. But getting back to this. So Northeast Ohio Sports, I'm not trying to hate on him. I'm just trying to look at his statement. He said, they're rich guys. They know what they're doing and whatnot. Blackstone Group bought Equity Office towards its peak in 2007. The real estate boom, right? Everything crashed. Real estate didn't recover for about 4 years. And on top of it, the Blackstone Group should have gone bankrupt in 2009. The only thing that propped them up was the Federal Reserve. So anyone saying that, these guys are smart, they have money, they're basically, if you want me to be blunt, they're like the beneficiaries of welfare. Some people could call these guys on Wall Street and some of these hedge funds leeches on welfare. And I know it sounds harsh, but at the same time, the Federal Reserve bailed the whole system out, particularly Wall Street. They would be nowhere without all that funny money, all that quantitative easing, aka QE. So just because they are buying, what is it, CGC, CSG, whatever it is called, right? I think I sent some of these cards to them. And I'm still waiting on them. They bought them. They're out of Florida. So I'm not going to say that Blackstone Group is smart for making this purchase. So here's the thing. These hedge fund guys buy when it's hot. They don't really buy when it's cooling down because it's hard, number one, to borrow money when the market's going down. So they buy it when it's hot, when the liquidity is out there. And, if these companies were smart, they would have bought it much cheaper in 2008, 2009 when everything was crumbling down. But oh, yeah, none of these companies had the money then because they were worried that they'd go bankrupt unless they got some monopoly money help from Uncle Sam and the Federal Reserve. So I always keep that in mind. And I'm also looking at PSA's acquisition of Goldin. And I talked about that in the other video. Now, Goldin Auctions, from what I remember reading, he started in 2008 when the whole market was crashing. And now he's making these deals once the market is hot. And he's getting all this private equity funding now. He's getting PSA to acquire them. So, from analyzing all of this, I think Ken Goldin did it the smart way. He basically started out when everything was in a tough spot, and he grew this thing over the past few years, over the past decade. He got bought out when the markets are getting close to an all-time high. So Ken Goldin, some people call him shady, some people call his site shady. I haven't read too much about it, and I can't comment on it, but he did it the smart way. He basically bought low and he sold high. Now, these hedge funds that are buying these guys out, they're buying high, and what they're probably going to try to do in the coming years is sell higher. But here's the thing. In my opinion, this whole card market is going to be crumbling. That doesn't mean later this decade it's going to rebound. I think it will rebound. But in the meantime, I think hedge funds are making the wrong decision. They may be doing it now because they're like, we have the funding now. We could get away with it. During a downturn, no banks are going to provide us liquidity, or no third party is going to provide us liquidity. That could be the case. But ultimately, they're doing what hedge funds do. They buy high and they're trying to sell higher. But trying to sell higher, that may come at a different point. That may come down the road. I wanted to finish off with buying high and selling higher. And I want to actually talk about one of the companies that I work with, or that I'm with. They decided to sell their company in 2007 towards the top of the stock market. They sold it to a private equity company. The private equity company was like, we don't want to deal with it. They sold at the bottom in 2009, and the same family repurchased it, and now they still have it. So what I'm trying to say is, a lot of these private equity guys, hedge fund guys, Wall Street guys, they buy the hype. I was talking about sports cards investors. A lot of them were buying the hype in February. I personally, after learning through my mistakes, I want to buy fear and I want to sell greed. And right now, I'm slowly but steadily still selling some of the cards that I have. Like I said, that doesn't mean that I'll stop buying. I'm just going to be very selective of what I buy now. Anyways, guys, let me know what you think about this. Smash the like button, subscribe if you haven't, comment down below, guys. Thanks. Bye.